Nestled in the middle of downtown Calgary is one of the most oldest churches in the city, Knox United Church. This impressive 103-year-old structure is considered by some to be one of the most haunted places in Calgary. For some time, it has been on my list of places to check out, so a short while ago we decided to do so. We arrived downtown in the early morning to explore the premises. We were greeted by our contact, who then showed us inside. Knox is striking and beautiful, its architecture grand. It is large with balconies, the ceilings were high, and on all the upper walls were ornate, stained glass windows. It is equipped with a giant cassavant organ, which is considered the largest in Western Canada. If you stand in its corridors while it plays, its echoes add to the eerie voices calling out from the past. Before we go into the haunted lore, let's look at the actual historical history. As with most of the haunted locations we have investigated, the factual history seems more interesting than the mythos. Knox was named after John Knox, who was a Scottish minister, theologian, writer, and reformist, and is considered the founder of the Presbyterian Church of Scotland. It was established in 1883 by Reverend James Robertson, superintendent of the Western Mission for the Presbyterian Church in 1881. Originally, the congregation was located at the I.G. Baker store. As attendance grew, they shared a tent with the Methodists. Eventually, on a budget of $1,000, the first small wooden building was completed on October 21, 1883. Here's a model mock-up of what it looked like. Hardly the large, almost Gothic stone structure we've come to know today. This building was moved across the Bow River on skids to be closer to Calgary's new downtown area. There was a second church built in 1887 to accommodate the church's growing congregation. Prime Minister Sir John A. Macdonald's wife officiated the cornerstone ceremony. This sandstone building had several modifications done to it over the years. In 1912, a cornerstone was laid on 4th Street and 6th Avenue. The new church was to be built on land donated by Colonel James Walker. This is the church we know today. This church has become known unofficially as the Cathedral of the West. Knox took part in the first Chinese missions here in Calgary. Reverend James Herdman's efforts in the mission helped break down some of the social barriers and fear from the congregation concerning the growing number of Chinese in the community. Shortly after its first year of worship, the world was plunged into World War I. Several volunteers from the church enlisted. Their brave sacrifice is honored in the honor scroll that can be found in the front vestibule, alongside with photos of the church's founders and history. In the 60s, the landscape of Calgary drastically changed, slowly transforming into the modern city of today. Surrounding apartments and houses were demolished to make way for future businesses and skyscrapers. On September 25, 1960, the Knox Hall Education Building was built on what used to be the back parking lot. The history of Knox United is very in-depth and long. If you are a history buff and want a more detailed exploration of Knox United, I highly recommend getting a hold of this book. It is a complete history of the first 100 years. Moving on to the haunted lore, we met up with our contact, Mr. Robert Benner, who was willing to share the haunted history of the church. He recited the following stories to us.
The elevator ghost.
Well, this happened on a weekday about 8:30 or quarter to 9 in the morning in the summer, maybe 2 years ago. And this is the chapel area, so I was standing here and I was moving something, I can't remember. But I was looking this way, and there's the double doors into the main hallway are right across from here. So I just happened to be struggling with something, and I look up, and this figure just whipped down the hallway. Now, I didn't see a face or anything, but to me, it struck me as being a female figure. And there was only myself and the secretary in the building at the time. So I kind of knew that was probably a ghost or something, so I just kind of went in the hallway, walked downstairs. There was nothing around. But someone else saw the same thing just after I did. Actually, it was the organist's son, and he saw it coming out of the elevator, which is in the newer part of the building. There's an addition onto the historic part, which is about 55 years old now. So he sort of saw the same thing. So
The Grey Lady.
So this is what in church terminology is called the narthex. So this is the main entrance to the church. So that's 6th Avenue and 4th Street's over there. So a lot of activity that people see around here happens in this part of the church. So, well, the thing I witnessed once was, it was Sunday, it was like 1 o'clock. All mine, I've seen all this in the daytime. I don't want to be here. Well, actually, I've been here really late at night a few times, never seen anything, but I was locking those doors there, and I just happened to turn, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw, going through these doors here, she was a woman wearing a white blouse and a long charcoal gray dress, and she had her hair up like they would have had around World War I. So she was right there, and she just went through those doors. Now, a lot of times, at least back then, I would lock the doors a bit too early, and people would want to exit out here, so I would just jump into the church and say, I'll let you out here if you want to, which I did. I jumped out into the other aisle, and I said, I'll let you out here if you want to, but there was nobody here. So this was just slightly after the caretakers were telling me all these stories, and so I went to the one caretaker, and I said, okay, this ghost you keep telling me you see that walks down the aisle and disappears, what was she wearing? He says, well, she wears a white blouse and a long gray dress. So this ghost is sometimes referred to as the Grey Lady. Sounds melodramatic. And a lot of people think, and I don't know why for some reason, that it's the sister of Reverend McCarthy. And we sort of just call her the Sunday school teacher, because I think she was heavily involved in the Sunday school. And this would probably be around 1919, just after the First World War, or during it. So,
The Vanishing Girl.
the other story here, again, this happened at lunchtime, during the weekday. In the summers, well, actually all year round, we open the doors of the church at lunchtime so people can come in. And sometimes we have people sitting here, and sometimes we don't. But this person, she's been a member of the church for a long, long time. She's not somebody who buys into the paranormal stuff. She's pretty a no-nonsense lady. And she was sitting here, and I'd say she's about in her early 80s now. And she was sitting at a table we had right here. And again, it's lunchtime, downtown Calgary. You've got lots of traffic going by and everything. And she thought she was being stared at. So she turned around and she said, I turned around, and there's this girl looking at me, and she was maybe about 6 inches away from my face, and then disappeared. So she said she just turned around again, and she said about maybe 20 minutes later, same feeling, turned around, same girl standing there staring at her, and disappeared. So she just said, I'm not telling my grandchildren this, they already think I'm nuts. But like I said, she's not a person who would tell stories like this, but that's what she saw that day.
The little boy.
Also in this area, there's supposed to be a little boy who can be mischievous. I've never had any experience with that, but a lot of the kids here seem to know about him, and I don't know why. But the story goes about him is when this church was built in 1912, this was a residential area. So downtown really was 8th Avenue. And apparently this kid got hit by a car or something, so that's why he's here. But I personally haven't seen him, but he's just part of the folklore around here. And again, it's kids that seem to see him.
The lady in red.
The other one, we have the lady in red. We seem to have a lot of colors around here. The lady in red's an interesting character from what I hear. She just comes right through the front door. But she likes to sit in this pew. And again, it's usually kids or teenagers will see her. She'll come in here and she'll sit right there. And I remember it was one night, it was when our minister retired. We had a big party for him. I think it was June. And it was still daylight. And one of the girls, I think she was 14, 15, she came to myself and someone else and just said, "There's a strange lady wearing a red dress," and she just disappeared in front of me. And I go, "Oh, really? Where'd you see her?" And just pointed to this pew. And so, because I watched too much TV, I came over and I just waved my hand to it, and it was pretty cold. But supposedly that's the other person that's seen quite a bit around here. People all the time will come, not all the time, but they'll just see things. Some people just can see these things, and others don't. When I first came in here, I was the weekend caretaker. I took it over, and I've never been in the church by myself before, so I kind of, when I walked into the building, I turned every single light on, and I said, "If anybody's here, I never want to see you." So they've been pretty good about making sure I don't see them, but on those 2 occasions, I saw something. And in the other side of the church, and again in the newer part, which you wouldn't think anything was happening, I was sitting in the lobby. It was just before church. It was about 9 o'clock Sunday morning. I usually sat there and waited for the ministers to show up, and then I'd unlock all the doors. And there was distinct footsteps in the upper hallway. So I went up there, and the doors were still locked, and everything was dark. So I checked, there was nobody up there, but I was kind of surprised that on that side of the church there'd be something going on, because it's still, even though it's 55 years old, it's still considered a modern structure, and why anything would hang around there is beyond me. But those are my 3 experiences. Other people have kind of seen the lady in gray and the lady in red. Those are the 2 most common, and the boy. So I tend to hear those stories quite often.
After hearing these ghostly stories, we explored the church from the theater in the bottom to the Sunday school daycare at the very top. We learned that currently Knox has also been the front to welcome the LGBT community into the United Church, committed to work for the full inclusion and affirmation of all people in the life and work of the church. In fact, it was the first place I'd ever seen a gender-neutral washroom, which is pretty awesome. In 2005, the church opened a labyrinth. It is a modified 24-foot-long Chartres pattern labyrinth, like the one in the Chartres Cathedral in France. A single pathway winding to the center and returning out again, so one can engage in the spiritual practice of pilgrimage or self-discovery. There is a downstairs area not a lot of people seem to know about. It consists of a few dance halls and a beautiful theater. This was home to the Knox Theater Players. Formed in 1979, they were the first of their kind in downtown Calgary and were primarily made up of the Knox United Choir. There were 2 bathrooms that seemed like they hadn't changed from when the church opened. In one bathroom, the light kept switching on and off. As we investigated further, we found out that it was an automatic light, probably set to detect anyone entering the loo. After speaking with our guide, he mentioned a lot of visitors mistake the automatic light for a haunting. If you want to learn more about Knox United Church, visit them personally or visit their website at www.knoxunited.ab.ca.